Rain fell so hard that night it blurred the streetlights into pale circles of gold, making the empty sidewalks look like they belonged to another world. A young woman stood beneath a broken bus shelter with nothing but a worn backpack clutched against her chest. Her face was wet from the rain, but the tears that mixed with it had started long before the storm arrived. She had lost her apartment, her job had disappeared weeks earlier, and every person she believed would stand beside her had quietly walked away. She had reached the terrifying moment where there was nowhere left to go and no one left to call. The city moved around her as if she were invisible, while she wondered if this cold sidewalk would become the place where hope finally disappeared. She had no idea that before sunrise, one simple act of kindness from a complete stranger would change the direction of her entire life. Before we continue this emotional journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness for more heart-touching stories that remind us humanity still exists in the world. Emma had always believed that if she worked hard enough, life would eventually reward her. She had spent years balancing two jobs while caring for her sick mother, putting her own dreams on hold because family always came first. When her mother passed away, Emma felt as though half of her heart had disappeared. The medical bills consumed every dollar she had saved, and soon after, the cafe where she worked closed without warning. At first she stayed optimistic, convinced another opportunity would come quickly. She filled out applications every day, walked miles to interviews, and smiled through every rejection. Weeks turned into months, her savings vanished, and the landlord finally placed an eviction notice on her apartment door. She packed everything that still mattered into one backpack because the rest had to be left behind. The furniture, the photographs she couldn't carry, and the tiny apartment that once felt like home became memories she was forced to abandon. For several nights Emma slept wherever she could find shelter. Some nights it was a train station bench, other nights it was under an overpass where she barely slept because fear kept her awake. She tried to stay invisible because asking for help felt harder than enduring the loneliness. Every passing stranger reminded her how quickly people looked away when they saw someone struggling. She wasn't angry with the world anymore. She was simply exhausted by it. That rainy evening she had spent her last few dollars on a small cup of coffee just to stay warm inside a convenience store for an hour. When the cashier politely explained that customers couldn't remain without buying more, she stepped back into the storm with nowhere to go. Her shoes were soaked, her hands trembled from the cold, and the tiny hope she had protected for so long began slipping away. She stared at the endless traffic and wondered how a person could disappear so completely while surrounded by thousands of others. Several minutes later, an old pickup truck slowed beside the shelter. Emma instinctively stepped back, uncertain of the driver's intentions. A man in his late 50s climbed out carrying an umbrella. His coat was old, his boots were muddy, and kindness rested quietly in his tired eyes. He wasn't dressed like someone wealthy or important. In fact, he looked like a man who had worked with his hands his entire life. He noticed Emma's soaked backpack before he noticed anything else. He gently asked if she had somewhere safe to spend the night. Emma tried to smile and insisted she was waiting for someone, but even she could hear how unconvincing the words sounded. The man didn't pressure her. Instead, he simply stood beside her under the umbrella while rain continued pouring around them. After a long silence, Emma admitted the truth. She whispered that she had nowhere left to go. The stranger nodded slowly as though he understood that sentence better than anyone else ever could. Then he quietly said the words that would stay with Emma forever. "If you have nowhere to go, then stay with me." Every instinct warned Emma to refuse. The world had taught her that trust could be dangerous. Yet there was something about the man's calm voice that carried no expectation and no hidden motive. He introduced himself as Daniel, a widower who lived alone on a small farm outside the city. He explained that after losing his wife years earlier, the farmhouse had become painfully quiet. He wasn't offering luxury or comfort beyond simple necessities, only a warm meal, a safe bed, and time to figure things out. The drive to the farmhouse was almost silent. Emma watched raindrops race across the truck window while wondering whether she had made the biggest mistake of her life or the best decision she never expected to make. When they arrived, the house was modest but welcoming. A porch light glowed through the rain, and flowers surrounded the front steps despite the storm. Inside, the smell of homemade soup filled every room. It didn't feel like entering a stranger's house. Somehow it felt like stepping into a forgotten memory of what home used to feel like. The following morning Emma woke expecting everything to disappear like a dream. Instead, Daniel was already making breakfast while an old golden retriever rested peacefully near the fireplace. He never asked painful questions or demanded explanations. He simply offered her dignity at a time when she had almost forgotten what that felt like. Over breakfast he mentioned that the farm always needed an extra pair of hands if she wished to stay for a while. The days slowly became weeks. Emma helped repair fences, planted vegetables, cared for chickens, and learned skills she had never imagined herself enjoying. The fresh air cleared the sadness that had settled deep inside her. Each evening they shared simple dinners while talking about life, loss, mistakes, and hope. Daniel confessed that after his wife's death he had nearly given up on life himself. A neighbor had once shown him unexpected kindness when he needed it most. Since then he had promised himself that if he ever met someone standing where he once stood, he would become the helping hand he had once received. Emma realized kindness often travels through generations of strangers, each person passing hope to someone else before disappearing quietly into the background. Months later, Emma found a stable job at a nearby community center helping families facing homelessness. Her own experiences allowed her to understand people in ways no training ever could. She listened without judgment because she remembered exactly how invisible desperation could make someone feel. She rented a small apartment in town, but every weekend she returned to the farmhouse to help Daniel, who had become the closest thing to family she had left. One winter afternoon a frightened young mother arrived at the community center carrying a sleepy little boy. She had been evicted that morning and had nowhere to go. Emma recognized the same hopeless expression she had once seen in the mirror. Instead of seeing another case file, she saw herself from 1 year earlier. She spent hours helping the woman find temporary housing, food, and support. As they hugged goodbye, Emma realized that one stranger's kindness had already begun changing many more lives. If this story is touching your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Ripple of Kindness, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that even the smallest act of compassion can completely change another person's future. Before this story ends, we have one special request. Please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness lives on," if you believe one caring person can change someone's entire life. Years passed, and the farmhouse became known throughout the community as a place where struggling people could find temporary shelter, warm meals, and hope without shame. Emma and Daniel never asked anyone about their past before offering help. They simply believed everyone deserved another chance. Some visitors stayed one night, others stayed several months, but almost all of them eventually returned one day, not because they still needed help, but because they wanted to become the helper for someone else. Emma often thought back to that stormy night when she believed her story was over. She had stood beneath a broken bus shelter convinced the world had forgotten her. Instead, the world had quietly answered through one ordinary man who refused to let compassion become rare. She learned that heroes are not always famous, wealthy, or powerful. Sometimes they are simply people who notice another human being standing alone in the rain and choose to say the words that change everything forever. "Then stay with me." And from that single sentence, an endless ripple of kindness continued spreading from one life to another, proving that hope never truly disappears as long as someone is willing to share it.